Hello, 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 friends. Clary here with a new edition of Where in the World. We're going to switch things up a little bit. Um, Today, we're not doing interviews. I'm starting a new live resume review series. So, the way that this started was a friend of mine recently sent her resume. I've actually been getting quite a few resumes recently from people who want me to take a look at them, to review them, and this is not uncommon. I love doing resume reviews. I do one-on-ones with folks. I sit down with them and I help them workshop their resumes. And I've, in fact, helped more than 20 people workshop their resumes. And those resumes have gone to help folks get jobs at some top high paying companies. So I have a formula that I like to use for my own resume, and I've been using this formula for literally years. It's the first resume that I ever had, that I actually stuck with. And over time, because the resume template worked so well, because I got so many compliments from recruiters about the layout and the format of my resume, I just stuck with it. I truly believe that your resume is a living, breathing story of your skills and your experience. What that means is you can get rid of this idea that you're going to write your resume and then you never have to touch it again. That's just not how it works. You grow, you morph, you evolve over time. So your resume is going to do the same thing. So I'm here today with a resume. I reached out to my friend. She sent the resume with maybe about 24 hours, with a little bit less than 24 hours before she actually had to submit the final resume. So I didn't have a ton of time to really dive into it. So I reached out to her and I asked if I could do a live resume review on LinkedIn. And then that I would then send her this video so that she could take a look and see some of my feedback. With that being said, I have changed the name on the resume, as well as the names of the companies that this person worked for. However, everything else is the same. So the position titles is the same, the bullets are the same, the dates are the same. I also changed the name of the educational institutions that this person attended as well, just for a little bit of privacy. That's just to say, we have a couple more of these live resume reviews coming up, and I'm inviting you, if you would like for me to take a look at your resume, to review it live, and to send you the video, go ahead, go over to my LinkedIn account. At the top near my name, a few bullets down, you'll see a link where you could submit your resume for a live review. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link that's in the comment. That'll take you to the form, fill that out, and then I'll receive your resume. It gives you the option to either upload a resume or to provide a link. All right, so let's hop into it and let's get started. Again, this is the first time I've done this. I don't have a script for this resume review or these live streams. So this is off the top of my head. But as we continue to do more and more and more of these, I promise, it will get better. So let's get started. So who is my friend? My friend is Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. Okay. So Daenerys, she has incredible experience. She works in the counseling psychology field, and she has had several different types of jobs that she's worked for, starting from, let's see, April of 2017 to the present day. So she's currently working, and she's working in the field that she is going into. Now, with this being said, this person is applying for a promotion in her current field. And so a lot of the information and the bullet points that are in this resume are going to be directly relevant to the job that she's applying for. Now, if you're someone who's pivoting your career, then some of the bullet points that you add or some of the skill sets that you accentuate might be a little bit different. today we're not going to go too deep, or we're not really not going to go at all into the refining and customizing aspect of your resume. So I look at resumes in a few different stages. So the first stage is just having a complete solid resume. The second stage is to then customize that resume to the job that you're applying for. So we're not going to talk about customization today. We're just going to look at this resume as it is right now, and we're going to take a look at it and do some editing. Cool. So this person also has some leadership activities as well. So let's go ahead and we're going to scroll to the top. So this is Daenerys Stormborn. Um, the first thing that I look at when I look at resumes is I look at space. So on your resume, there are the two most valuable resources on your resume are A, space, and B, time. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. In regards to space, we want the first thing that I look for is how much space is on the resume. I look at how much space are we using to tell our story? And I also look at how much space are we not using? How much wasted space do we have? Now, taking a look at this resume, there's not a ton of wasted space, which this person has used a majority of the space to tell her story. So that's an A plus 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 right there. I see a lot of resumes from students who come and they have a really beautiful creative resume that they designed on Canva, and it has lots of boxes and spaces and it has lots of graphics. And the issue with that is that with the more graphics that you add to your resume, A, the more likely it is um, for your resume to when you're converting. So let's say I have this resume is on Google Docs. Let's say I'm converting it to Word to DocX. Then you're more likely to have issues with your formatting when you have those graphic elements when during that conversion process, if that makes sense, right? So boxes and shapes and elements don't always translate from platform to platform, right? From it's not going to be the same in Google as it is in Microsoft. Now, these companies and these platforms have gotten a lot better over time to make that transition more seamless. However, we still want to make sure that we reduce the amount of possibility of error in our resume because this is our legal document, right? We want it to be as perfect as possible so that when we hand it over, it's a reflection of the attention that we give to the work that we do, our attention to detail, how detailed we can be in what we deliver. Our communication skill and ability, right? So even without someone reading my resume and looking at it and saying, hey, Clary says that she has excellent communication skills, they'll know that and they'll see that by how well I communicate my story in my resume. I hope you're following me, right? So we're demonstrating our expertise, we're demonstrating our skill set simply by creating a masterful resume, and that's what we're teaching you today. So, first thing I look at is how well they're using space. Second thing I'm looking at is how well they're using time. And when I talk about time, I'm not talking about your time because you're going to spend quite a bit of time on your resume. If you don't spend quite a bit of time on your resume, then either A, you are really, really good at writing resumes and you need to start your own chat GPT-3 or resume writing business, or B, you're not spending enough time on your resume and you're likely missing core elements that can really boost your chances of getting an interview and then later getting the job. And then also in terms of time, I'm looking at how much time you're spending on it, but I'm also looking at how much time the person on the other end, that recruiter, the hiring manager, the point of contact, or that networking link that you found, that person that you're sending your resume to, how much time do they have to spend reading through your resume before they get the maximum amount of value, before they can make the decision that you're the perfect fit for the job, right? So, in one end, we're looking at time in terms of how much time can I tell that you've put into writing your resume? And then B, I'm looking at time in terms of how much time does a person who's reading your resume have to spend in order to make a decision of whether or not you are a good fit for the job. So, we want to increase the amount of time that we spend on our resume at first, right? Because this is going to change over time as we continue to do our resume. We're going to spend less and less and less and less and less time. Nowadays, I can update my resume in an hour, right? But I'm updating my resume every season, basically. So it shouldn't take me as long, right? When you're first getting started, it may take you a little bit longer. Then the second part I'm looking at is how much time does the person on the other end, how much time do they have to spend before they can make a decision? So we want to shrink that amount of time so that they can make that decision quickly. Because guess what? They're looking at dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of resumes every single day. And so you want to make it as easy for them as possible to make a decision on you as quickly as possible. Cool? Awesome. So, in terms of space, this person is using space really, really well. Now, one thing I am noticing is that it's bleeding over into this second page, and so that's something that we'll want to address. We should not, unless you have, unless you are in education, in higher education, okay, and you're applying for your PhD, or you're applying to become a professor at an organization, your resume needs to be one page, point blank simple. Um, Even when you're applying as a PhD student, you probably are going to have one page that's a summary of your skills and experience, and then you're going to break down the rest of your experience in those following pages. Now, if you're like me and you have more than 10 years of working experience, and you have a hard time squeezing everything on one page, and you need to go into a second page, that's okay, as long as it's two full pages. But you want to avoid that as possible. Even myself, I will challenge myself to put as much on one page as possible. And the reason why is because if you're going into two pages, it's likely that you have a lot of stuff that you don't need, that's not relevant to the job that you're applying for. And so we want to challenge ourselves, right? We want to challenge ourselves to be concise, to be clear, and to be persuasive in our writing. And so I have something that I tell everyone, anyone that I mentor, I say, hey, make sure that every single word in your resume has a purpose. And if it doesn't have a purpose, get rid of it. Cool. Okay. So we've looked at time. We've looked at space. In terms of time, I typically I'll solve the time problem with this section right here. And as you can see, this section is very small. If you look at my resume, this section is probably this big, my skills section, right? Do not underestimate or devalue your skills by not sharing your level of expertise, your depth of expertise, or the value of your expertise, right? And so what this is missing is, I see she said has organization skills, but that doesn't tell me the depth, right? It doesn't tell me the level, the depth, or the value of that experience, right? And so this is going to be an area that we're going to spend a lot of time on it. I do find, interestingly enough, the skill section tends to be the hardest section for people to master. Um, Whereas because I think the work experience is a little bit more straightforward. This is what I did. This is what I this is the the results that I got. Whereas the skill section really requires you to think about your strengths, right? So do your own SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Do your own deep diving, internal reflection, and say, here's what I'm good at. Here are my strengths. And here's the value. And here's how well I know it, right? So I find that the skill section tends to be the hardest. All right. So I mentioned I don't have a script for this. And this is the first time that we're doing this. So I think what I'm doing now is I'm kind of setting the stage for how I think about resumes. And I know I have a feeling we're not going to be able to finish this in 1 hour, but we will get as far into it as we possibly can. So now that we've done our initial assessment, time and space, I'll just mention some things that are sticking out to me that maybe you have already noticed. And I also encourage you guys, if you're watching this and you're interested and you see things, like drop those in the comments, right? Let us know that you're watching. I am not perfect, right? So you might see things that I miss. You might ask questions that are really, really powerful questions that can help us to tell the story in a better way and provide clarity to other people who really need this help. Okay, cool. So, some of the things that I'm seeing, there is a difference here, and this is just off the bat. My background is in writing and communications, and so my eye is very much trained to see things. Okay, so here I automatically see that there is a difference between the font size here and the font size here. That's a no no. Got to keep. Well, it's not a no no. If anything's going to be bigger, it should be the name. Okay. I can see here, there's a difference between this font and this font. This is a sans serif font. Sans serif means it doesn't have like the hanging things. And this is a serif font. Tell right away. So this is Times New Roman and this is Arial. We got to choose one or the other. Can't have both. Okay. Similarly here, this is Times New Roman. This is Arial. We don't want to have that. I'm also seeing some differences in terms of how we format in terms of the bolding and the italics. It's looking like we're using some bolding to talk about what we studied, and we're using italics to talk about the years. However, we missed some italics there, right? We got italics here and here, and we missed italics there. I'm also seeing that, let's see. And I did change a few things, like I said, the names, but I tried to keep it as close to form as possible as when I received it. Okay. I am seeing that these headlines are bold, the name, the skills are bold, but relevant work experience is not bold. Right. I am seeing leadership activities is also bolded. Okay. I am seeing this is a much smaller dash than this dash is. That's something that really stuck out to me. I'm also seeing, it looks like we flipped. So here we have Palo Alto, California, and then we have the date. So the location of the date. And here we have the location and the date. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. This is, I think this is supposed to be over here. Okay. So we have the date. Okay. So those are a few things that I'm seeing. I am also seeing that I'm guessing this is the, so this is the role and this is the job, the actual company. So this is in all caps and this is in lowercase caps. And I'm also seeing that it looks like some of our bullets here, we have a bullet here, we have a bullet here. This bullet is doing its own thing. So it's in its own world. We're going to just fix that for now. Okay. But that's weird because the formatting is off. So we will address that a little bit later. What else am I seeing? Let's see. I think for now, well, the other thing I'm seeing that's big is that there aren't any spaces between these experiences. So this needs a space, theirs needs to be a space here. It's kind of hard to follow what experiences, what tasks or what roles and responsibilities match with what experiences, right? So that's kind of hard to see when I first take a glance at it. And so this is what I'm just saying. I've made one small edit to this resume. That's what I'm seeing off that, right? And so that's what your recruiter's going to see, right? That's what the hiring manager is going to see. And so we want to make sure that we're always putting our strongest foot forward. Because guess what? The resume is the gateway to the interview. So we got to get our resume right so that we can 10x the chances that we get that interview. We want them to be so impressed by our resume that they can't help but call us back, that they can't help but want to get us into a room and talk to us. Your resume is your story on paper. That interview is your story out loud. Okay? Cool. So let's start hopping into some actual editing. Let's get into the fun stuff. Whenever I edit resumes, I will always follow my formula. And my formula is my resume template. Now, there's lots of different types of resume templates out there. I'm sure you've listened to tons of gurus who've told you what to do and what not to do in your resume. Do what you want. Okay? Like, do you, boo. What I'm showing you, the template I'm going to show you is the template that I have personally used to get jobs at top paying jobs in this country. Okay. It's the same resume that many of my mentees have used to get top paying job at paying companies. It is the same resume that I will continue to use as I move forward in my career. Now, there are different types of resumes, right? So there's this kind of more of a professional corporate resume, but then there are also resumes that focus mostly on skills, and those I would use for retail. But now we're just kind of focusing on this one type of resume, and maybe down the line I'll introduce the other types of resumes. But those are different types of resumes. It's not the same as different format, even though it is kind of a different format. Okay, cool. So I'm going to introduce you right now. I'm going to show you the resume template that I use. This is also the same resume template that I give to my mentees when we start working together. Okay. This resume has evolved over time, and this specific template, I have kind of written my own guidelines for how to use this template and how to level up your resume. So what you're going to see from my template is A, it's one page. B, I got a lot of stuff on there, like lots and lots of words, because I want you to feel comfortable with writing a lot. Now, when I say keep it clear, concise, yes, do so. However, use up the space, right? You have had so much skills, so much experience. You've seen things that other people have not seen, and so this is your chance to tell your story, to show other people of what kind of value you can bring to the table by what you've accomplished and what you've done in your life. I would say one of the number one challenges that I face with the folks that I mentor is that it's simply simply confidence. I'll look at resumes and I'll look at them, and they'll be very short in terms of the depth that we go into in terms of explaining our skill set. And I love to teach people how to really accentuate the work that they've done, because the better that you can describe your work, the more confident you're going to be. And also, when you get into that interview, now you're going to have some content to work with when they start asking you these questions. Okay. So, while we want to keep it clear and concise, we want every single word to have a purpose. We also want to give ourselves permission to really, brag a little bit about what we've done. And that's okay. That's what the resume is for. Okay. Cool. So this is a resume template we're going to be working off of. So with this being said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share this. Go back to this tab. We're going to share this resume, and I'm going to start making some changes. So the first change that I'm going to make, because I start with organization, and then I look at content, and then I refine content. So there's 3 steps: organization, organize the content. Then we create the content, then we refine the content, right? And then we make the content look pretty. So design is usually typically the last thing that we do, because if you get so caught up in design, you never really can focus on the thing that's most important, which is the content. So we're going to work on our organization. There is going to be a little bit of design in this as well. I'm just going to kind of knock it out all at once. So we're going to we're going to choose Times New Roman for our font. So like I said, you either want to choose Arial or you want to choose Times New Roman. My template is Times New Roman, so that's what we're going to use. We're going to turn this 24 Times New Roman, and we're going to change this to 24 font. Wow. Boom. Okay, so now what happened there? What happened there? Before, I didn't know whose resume this was. It was so small. I knew her email was motherofdragons@housetargaryen.com, but I didn't know who she was, right? So we just made the name bigger than we just made the name more bold. And there's a space up here, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that and bring it back to the center. Okay, so now we have this wonderful information at the bottom. We're gonna half this. We're gonna turn this into a Times New Roman 12-point font. Cool. And we are going to use our space a little bit more. So funny story. I guess it's not really a funny story. It's more of a comment. I get a lot of questions when I've done this. I've gotten some questions about whether or not you should add your actual address or location to the resume. And my answer is always yes. Why? Because I've always added my address, my full on address, and it's never cost me a job, or maybe it did, but that's okay because it wasn't the job I was supposed to be at anyway. I believe I think it's good practice to add your location at the very least, because when you're applying for a job, let's say you're applying for a job that is in another state, or sorry, let's back up, in another city, in another county, in another state, right? Or, another country. You want your employer to be able to make a decision of whether or not they have the funds and the ability to either move you out there to the job, right? To relocate you, because some jobs will do that. I've worked at a job that actually relocated me from one place to the other. And as a part of our initial conversation, it was like, hey, I see that you live in Los Angeles. Are you going to be able to relocate to Northern California? Right. But I wanted to make it as clear as possible for this recruiter, because that's important. That's an important part of the transaction. If we're going to be dating, then I want to know how far we live from each other. Right. Because that's going to tell me whether or not this relationship is going to work. And so I err on the side of being as transparent as possible with my recruiter. I don't want to hide things or make things difficult for them. So if by adding my address, I can make things easier for my resume, that's what I'm going to do. If not your address, I think your location is just fine. Okay. One other thing that we're going to do before we even hop into it is we're actually going to change the title of this document. And I typically recommend that you have the name, and so she has her name in here. I'm going to put that in brackets because I also she has the year of her resume. I like to I like to update my resumes each season. So I'll name my resume the season, right? So I'll say, what is this? This is winter. So 2023 winter resume. This is going to help you a lot. Well, it's going to help your recruiter because they have your name on their resume. So it's going to be a lot easier for them to find that resume if they mislocate it, if they decide to print it out. But also, it's going to help you because when you go back to look at your resume, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I wrote this in winter of 2023. It's time to make some updates. Some things have changed. Okay. It's a really easy way. I probably have I would dare say, probably at least over 20 versions of my resume, if not more. Okay. It's a living, breathing document, y'all. It's going to evolve over time. Get used to it. Okay, cool. So we have Daenerys Stormborn. She lives in San Jose, California. And her contact information is Mother of Dragons. Now, this does not need to be bold. So we're going to unbold it. And I like to actually make it a hyperlink because guess what? Let's say this recruiter is reading this on a iPad or on their desktop. If they can click it and they're like, oh, I love this person, let me hit her up. I'm gonna click it and I'm gonna email you, right? We want to make it as easy as possible for them. I like this divider separator. I also like to use the squiggly sometimes. So this is the squiggly I like to use, but I am a huge fan of the divider separator. And then you might also include here your LinkedIn information. So this is the time, y'all, to update your LinkedIn profiles because there's so much opportunity on LinkedIn, and you can impress people by just how well your LinkedIn profile is decked out. Okay, so if you're not using LinkedIn to really broadcast and showcase your skills and ability, now's the time to do so. And also, if you guys want to learn this stuff, I do host workshops as well for resume writing, for LinkedIn reviews. And then you'll be able to find that on the website that I'm going to be dropping here very soon. But don't have the website out yet. Head on over to Conscious Career Network on LinkedIn and join us there. This is where I'll be posting a lot of updates about this community. Okay, cool. All right, so now look at how beautiful that is. It's so pretty. Okay, so we're gonna add some divider. We want to break this up, right? Our eyes are very sensitive, y'all. They're so sensitive that we want to make it as easy as possible for people to get what we do. Now, with this being said, I'm making a lot of changes, right? I'm not worried about whether or not this is 2 pages, three pages, or 4 pages. Right now, we're in a state where we are organizing, then we'll work on content, and in the refinement process, that's when we're really going to pay attention to how much space we're using in terms of how many pages we're using. We're also going to change these margins because this is a really thick margin at the top. The margins that I like to use, and I actually have to take a look at these, are 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. We can go ahead and update that format right now. Page setup. So we'll go ahead and change this to 0.5. Cool. And guess what? 1 page. With that one simple change, all we did was change the margins. And we already got her resume to 1 page. Now, what happened? It just knocked everything else around. Okay, so we're going to. So at this point, I would love to explain my process or the way that I think about building a resume. I'm not going to get so deep into it. I have done a live stream before where I talked about how I build my resume, and I talked about this house analogy. You can also think of your resume as a tree. I will say that for another video, but for now, I think it's important for you to know that your education is the foundation of your experience, and as the foundation of your experience, you put it at the bottom. Did that just blow your mind? Your education is the foundation of your experience, and as the foundation of your experience, you put it at the bottom. A lot of people like to put their education at the top because they think it's the most impressive thing that people want to see is where they went to school. Um, I would say this is not true. This is not true in one special scenario, and maybe there are other special scenarios. If you're a recruiter, I would love to know. But if you work in engineering, or like you're a coder, put your education at the top. The reason why is because a lot of recruiters will rule you out simply based off of your GPA. Like simple as that. If your GPA ain't it, like you're not even being considered. So go ahead and put that education at the top. Make it easy for them to filter you out. Um, or if you don't feel confident about your GPA, put it at the bottom, right? The reason why I like to put my resume at my education at the bottom is I learned this early on because I am a early bloomer in the sense that I started my career at the age of, how old was I? I was like 22 to 24. Like I was young. I was very young. And so when you go, a lot of times people talk about racism, they talk about sexism, they don't always talk about ageism. And so I learned that I wasn't getting hits on my resume because they would just look at when I graduated and be like, oh, this person is too young, or oh, this person, they're way too young. They don't have the skills, they don't have the experience. So I would get filtered out based on that. So what I realized is if I put my experience at the top and I talk about what I've done so clearly, so succinctly, so professionally, they will be, by the time they get to my experience, by the time that they see when I actually went to school, they're going to be so impressed. They're going to be, oh my goodness, this person is 24 years old and she's already done so much. Yes, yes, I have. Right. So that's why I choose to put my education at the bottom. Also, education is the foundation of your experience. And we don't want to use our education as a crutch, right? We really want to accentuate our skills and our work experience. So now this resume already looks so different. Okay. Now I can see more clearly what we're working with. Okay, so we got some skills. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create a whole section for skills. We're going to create a whole section. Why? Because that's what you deserve. So we are going to, instead of saying skills, because skills is so last year, it's so old school. Instead of saying skills, because skills doesn't really tell us much. This is my skills. It doesn't tell us much. I want to be a little bit more specific, right? I want to be specific about how I apply my skills. Okay. So, for example, if you're applying for a job as um, if you're applying for a job as let's say, HR recruiter, then I want to show, like, let's say the title of the job is HR recruiter. Like when you look at the actual job description, it says HR recruiter. I want them to know immediately that I actually read their job description, right? So the job that Daenerys is applying for is a program management job, clinical program manager. So what I'm going to do is, instead of saying skills, we're going to say clinical program management qualifications and capabilities. It's so pretty. Doesn't it sound so nice? Qualifications and capabilities. Skills or skills? Okay, got skills. This is why I'm qualified. This is why I'm capable, right? It's much more action oriented, much more clear. So we're going to change this to 24. We're going to make that bold. sorry, not 24. We're going to change that to 14. I'm like, that's really big. Okay, so we're going to change this to 14. Much better. Okay. Now, this still feels weird to me, right? Like, it just runs together. So I love using these horizontal lines, guys. They're my favorites. So clean. Okay, so now we got some horizontal lines in here. Okay, but Daenerys, you're not getting off easy because you want to just put that you're bilingual, you got some communication skills, you got some leadership ability, but you don't want to spend the time to tell us exactly the level of your experience, the depth of your experience, or the value of your experience. And so I'm going to mess it all up. Instead of these bullets, we're gonna put these on separate bullets. We're gonna put these on separate lines. Something we're not gonna get into the video today is we're not gonna actually build out these bullets, but I'm thinking this might turn into a series where I come on and we continue to work on this resume. Cool. Okay, so now, whew, now we're rolling. And now we've got some qualifications and capabilities. We can see that she's bilingual. You can see she's got some communications qualification capabilities, some leadership ability, organization, interpersonal skills, and she's a team player. How much easier that is this to read than what we were just reading, right? At a glance, I got this, right? Before, I couldn't really tell because everything felt like it was kind of running together. So now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna I love copying and pasting, guys. I like to take the right types of shortcuts. So we're gonna create a new section. This is gonna be our work experience section. Relevant work experience. Relevant to me is, and I am quite of a wordsmith, and I do, again, every word should have a purpose. And when words have purpose, you want to make sure that you're using the right types of words to explain the thing you're trying to explain. So relevant work experience is like, this is just relevant. Related work experience helps us tell that next part of the story, right? These are qualification capabilities. Here's the related work that I've done that's related to this job, right? Small difference, small detail, but makes huge difference. All right, so now at the related work experience. So now already we've got, and actually I should have had the original one here, and that's one thing I should have done was actually copy this before we started, so that way you could see the original and you could see this one. I already have a copy of this one, which is why. But whenever you start working on your resume, make sure you copy it. Definitely keep the originals. Definitely keep the originals so that you have that in your back pocket. Okay, cool. So now we've got some related work experience. Okay, so now I know visually that I'm moving to a new section. So we're in the related work experience section. What do we want to do with this experience? So we want to, let's see, we're going to change these to a 10-point font. Oh, so before we even do that, let's just rearrange. I'm going to add some space just so visually we can kind of see what we're working with. We're going to work on this section right now. We're going to reorganize this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the company and the city here. So similar to what she already has. Remember how I said we like those lines. So we have the company and the city, and then we have her title. And then we're going to change this so that the title, the title or the role isn't bold, but we're going to actually bold the company and the city. Okay. And then we're going to take the date of her experience. I'm going to get rid of this. That also, if you don't get good at anything else, get great at formatting. It's just going to make your life so much easier. I know formatting is always a pain to do, especially with these documents. I'm using the tab button, by the way, to get these over, not the space bar, because space bar causes so many issues in terms of lining things up. And when you use tab, it'll generally keep things aligned. Okay, so it's like, now sometimes I will use the space bar to get to like the end. Let's see what that looks like. Might have to adjust that. Okay, cool. So now we have one focal point here on the right, which is when did you do the work? And we have a focal point here, which is where did you do the work and what did you do? Okay. So I know if I'm looking on the right, I'm going to see when you did work. I know if I look on the left, I'm going to see where you worked and what you did. Cool. Now we have these bullets. I'm going to change these bullets. I'm going to get rid of these. And I'm going to add a new bullet to this list. Guys, we're not even an hour in, and look at this transformation. We're not even an hour in, right? Okay, so now take a look at this. Look at this, and then look at this. You see how much easier and how much clearer that is, right? Like that's what we want. We want to make it as easy for our recruiters to get the value, and we do that by paying attention to detail and with our formatting. Okay. We're going to change. This is a 10-point font. Is that the one we want? And then we were using, oh, this is a different font. So we want to change this to Times New Roman. Beautiful. And that's going to be a 10-point font. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm just going to apply the same formatting to the rest of this. And one of my favorite tools, if you use any kind of docs, is this paint format tools. If you didn't know about it, basically the way it works is you highlight the thing that you highlight the format you like. You click the paint format and you highlight the format you don't like, and you highlight it, and you see how it just transformed it to the same. I'm going to do the same thing here. It's not going to change the spacing, but it'll change the font size, and the font type. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to bold this. We're going to take it out of italics. Oh, so much easier to read. So much easier to read. Okay. So, and I realize why, because this is mountain. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to update this. So give me 1 second. Actually, okay, she's a trainee. Okay, go ahead. Roll in italics that. Space. These dates up. This space. Tab. Over. We are going to turn this into italics, bold, and actually, I'm going to highlight this, like this. There it is. There it is. Let's see. Actually, if we do it here, what would happen? There it is. Okay. Tab's working now. I'm going to take this, change it. Then we're going to get rid of the space. I'm going to take all of this. And then we're going to change this. See how easy that was? So beautiful. See? You see the difference, guys? Just a few small changes, just a little bit of space. goes a long way. We have this here. Always been kind of weird with end dashes. Never able to get it just right, but I like the dash, so we'll do that. I'll talk about how when we get into the actual editing part of this and refining, I'm going to talk a lot about AP style. If you don't know if you're not familiar with AP style, I'll just explain it really quickly. AP style is one AP style is a standard, an editorial standard that most newsrooms in the United States use. Now, there are other editorial standards, but there are a handful that newsrooms will use, and AP style is the number one. In fact, there is a, what is it called? AP, Associated Press, play right? So, the reason why we want to write our resume in AP style is because our brains are trained to read in AP style, whether you know it or you're not. Don't, right? If you read the news, which most people do, you read articles online and you read the news, you probably don't realize it, but you're reading in AP style most of the time, right? What that means is that when we see something that's not in AP style, we may not know why it gives us a weird feeling, but we just know it feels weird. And so, a lot, again, of your resume is going to be the emotion, the feeling that our recruiter has when they look at it. If we look at this and we're like, oh my goodness, that's cluttered, I'm overwhelmed. Am I going to take the time to try to read through this to find out if you're a good fit for the job? Probably not. I'm going to put it to the side and I'm going to keep moving till I get to a resume that's like this, that makes it easy for me and makes it very clear what I'm looking at. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're writing an AP style. It's a little secret that you can apply. So if you don't know what AP style is, head over to Google and do some research. Cool. So let's get back to it. So we're going to go ahead and so my goal is with the next 7 minutes, have this completely formatted. You guys think I can do it? Let's try. Okay, so we got House Targaryen. We're going to move this over. And then once we have the formatting down, guys, then at that point, we can talk about the content, which is the most important part. I'm also thinking I may keep these videos up for 24 hours and then take them down and put them into our community. So, oh, we're missing a date here. Interesting. I'll need to look at the original resume again and see what I missed. I'll take a look at that later. Oh, actually, no, let me go back. Okay. Messed up. Here it is. Okay. Master's admission assistant. We're going to put that down here. We're going to move this up here. We're going to tab this over. Tab, 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 tab. We're going to take this. We're going to this. That looks like it's lined. This. Okay. Change this. Add some bullets here. And there we go. I'm actually nervous about the content part, guys, because I tend to write in kind of a silo. So it's going to be interesting editing out loud. All right, so let's see. So we have, okay, let's sort this out a little bit. The PC unit. Okay. So this. Okay. Also, these lines here are a good indicator of whether or not things are aligned. So I'll use these at the top to just double check to see if things feel like they're aligned or if they're off or not. Pro tip. Pro tip. I think this is a line. Right? Yes, that's perfect. Okay. So we have December, February, May. Okay, so now we're going to change this. We're going to move this up. This up. And she was a volunteer, so we're going to put that here. She was a volunteer at the Chemical Dependency Unit. Change this. Change this. How much time we got, guys? We have 3 minutes. Okay. And then I will take this and do that. Boom. 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 Okay. I don't think we're going to make it in 3 minutes, guys. But by the time when we come back next time, I will have completed this formatting so that we can then talk about content. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. I'll finish this bullet up and then we'll close out. She's a teaching assistant at for the psychology department. And here we go. This and this. Alrighty. Great. All right. So we will pause here just for time. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of this, at least just kind of seeing the process of transforming a resume and what that looks like. Next time I'll show you the resume we started with, and then I'll show you kind of where, where we are. I said that I was going to come back with this completely formatted. I think I will. The education section is going to be a little bit different and the leadership section is going to be a little bit different from the experience section and the skills section. So when we come back, I'll show you what that looks like and I'll kind of explain what I changed. With that being said, thank you so much for joining me today, for hanging out with me. I hope that this was of real value to you. And again, if you would like for me to review your resume live, please, please, please head over to my LinkedIn channel. Click the link that says submit resume for a LinkedIn live review. Or you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link in the comments and submit your resume. And like I said, there are a couple of resumes coming up. So we'll see how much demand there is, but I'm going to keep reaching out to some of my friends to see if they would allow me to share their resumes. I have lots and lots of resumes that we've worked on in the past. So I have no shortage of great content to bring you, but I would love to see your content as well. And if you're in a space where you're out here and you're applying for jobs and you're not seeing the results that you want to see, it may be helpful to have someone look at your resume. And I would be more than happy to do that. I scrub the names, I scrub the names of the locations of where you worked, and we only focus on the content of exactly what you did. So I look forward to seeing you guys here again next week. In the meantime, peace out.